So the first question in LeetCode biweekly is you're given an integer and you have to add dots as thousands separator, and you have to return it as a string. So suppose you have 987, you will return 987 because it is less than 1000. But in case of 1234, it will be 1.234 because it is 1234, and so on. So what we will do, and the limit is actually quite small. So n is if n is a number, then it is 2 raised to the 31. But if we look at it as a string, I think it will not be more than 10 digits. I think it will be around 8 to 9 digits. So we will actually do what we are asked in the question, but we will have to do it. So basically what we will do is we will make groups of 3, and we will just put dot between them. But we have to do it from the opposite side, not from the beginning. As in this case 1 2 3 4, we need this group and then we put a dot and so on. So what I will do to split it into groups, I'll convert this number into a string. So now this n is string, and then now we want to reverse it because we want to process it from the backwards. So we'll just split it character by character, and then we will reverse it. Now what we want to do is so let's say split string is equal to split. We will split n somehow, and when we have splitted it, so I'm assuming that split will give me something like, so if it is 1 2 3 4, I'm assuming that split will give me 1 comma, okay, so it will give me something like 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4, because right now my n is actually something like this. For 1 2 3 4 right now it will be looking something like this: 4 comma 3 comma 2 comma 1. So I'm assuming my split string will, because I'm processing from the end, it will give me something like 4 then 3 4 then 3.2 comma 2 and then 1. So I will break the above array into this array using this split function. Then what we can do is let's rename it. So split string we have got. Now we just want to do is basically, because this order is actually opposite of this order, so we need to reverse all the individual array. So what we can do, split array actually. So what we do, we reverse all the individual arrays in there. So we go there and we reverse all of them. So now it will look something like this. So it will only reverse the individual arrays and not the whole array. So now it will look like 2 comma 3 comma 4, and then it will look like 1. Now what I can do is so I have to reverse it, and then I can actually make string out of it. So instead of arrays, now it will be strings. So it will look like 2 3 4, it will be a string 2 3 4, and this will be a string 1. Now what we finally want to do is reverse this array. So we will reverse it, and then just we will return it joining with dot. So this is what we want to do. So only thing which we need to do right now is implement this split function, and it is actually very easy recursively. So if we have a string and we want to split it, what we can do is, if it is less than 3, less than actually, if it is less than and equal to 3 actually, then we will just return s. We will return what is the format of our output. So we will be returning it in an array, right? So yeah, because it is already an array. For example, if this array comes and this array was smaller, 4 comma 3, then it will return that array itself. So that is okay, I think. Yes, that array inside an array itself. So for example, output for this output for something like this would have been this one. so that's why it has to be wrapped in array again. This S is actually array. We can do with string as well, I think. So this is done, but now comes the interesting part where we can very easily just recurse. So think about this. So if you have somehow get to this part, then we just need to recursively call this function on this part. So which is very easy. You return. So basically you return you return first three characters, because now we know that it is greater than 3, so you will return first three characters, and after that you can just return, you can recursively call it on the remaining part. You can slice it from 3. So what we are doing is, so suppose this was so imagine the string in reverse. We first get 7, 8, 9, and then we recursively call that 1000 split function on the remaining string. So this should work. So let me just run it once. So this is working fine. Let us just run through the code once more, because I'm using quite a bit of JavaScript and it might not be similar for other languages. So we will run it for one input and we will see at each step what is the output. So let's create a custom input. Let's call it 1 2 3 4 5 6 and then 7. Okay, let's call it 7 8. So I'll put console logs everywhere, so where I think I need to explain. So after this it will be a string, so the number will become a string. So we have not submitted it. Let's submit it first to see if it is correct, then maybe we'll go through the. So this is correct. So now this first line will actually convert it to a string, then we will split it character by character, and this will just reverse it. So after this, n will look something like this. Okay, let me take a smaller example so that I can type 1 2 3 4 5. So at this point it will look like 1 2 3 4 5, but it is reversed. So it will look like this, and then you can just so what will it look like after this? So I am assuming that it will look something like this: 5 comma 4 comma 3, and then there will be another array which will contain the later part, right? So now after that, what I am doing is I am reversing this and joining it individual element. So I'm moving over this array, and for every individual array I'm reversing it and joining it with empty string. So it will become something like this. So first one will become 543, and second one will be because we have reversed also, so it will become actually second one will become 12, and first one will become 3 4 5, because we have first reversed it, and then we will reverse the complete array, which will become 1 2, and then it will become 3 4 5, right? And this is the answer, 12.3.4.5. so I'll just console log at each step. So n should be this one, and then console.log split array, and then again split array, and then again split array. So we have to print this only, so I'll just copy paste. So let's see if our guesses were right. So 5 4 3 2 1, which is correct, and the second one is 5 4 3 and 2 and 1, which is correct. So instead of number, these are characters, so that's why they are in quotes. And the third one will be 3 4 5 and 12, which is 3 4 5 and 12, and lastly we just reverse it and then join it with a dot. So that's how this question can be solved. We are just trying to do what the question is asking, because the input is very small, so we can just simulate it. So that's first question. Now the second question is basically you are given a directed acyclic graph. So the directed means if you can go from 0 to 1, that means that doesn't mean that you can go from 1 to 0. So the edge is directed, that means you can go from 0 to 1 only using this edge. So we are given n vertices numbered from 0 to n minus 1, and then and we are given edges in this form, from and to represent directed edge, from to node 2. Then we have to find the smallest set of vertices from which all nodes in the graph are reachable. So what does this mean is basically if I select some vertices out of this graph and I start from all those vertices, right, I should be able to reach each and every node. So, and it should be the smallest. For example, if I choose the whole graph, then obviously I can reach every node, right? But we have to start from the minimum number of nodes. So for example, in this case, if I just start from one node, is there a single node from which I can reach everywhere? 1 is obviously not a candidate because no outgoing edge, but 0, we can go to 1 and we can go to 2. So but okay, from 2 we can go to 5, but from 2 we cannot go to 4. So 0 is also not a single candidate. We need, so let's look at 2 then. 2 can't go to 0, so 2 will not reach whole of the graph. Similarly, 3 can go here, but you can't go here. And similarly, from 4 you can go here, but you can't go here. And from 5 you can't go anywhere apart from 5 itself, right? So it seems a little bit tricky, but if you do a minor observation, then this question actually becomes quite easy. So the observation is, if there is any edge to any node, right, that node will not be in the answer. So first look at what is the answer for this question. So the answer for this question, this test case, is 0, 3. Why? If you start from 0, you can go to 0, 1 and 2. If you start from 3, so basically from 0 you can go to 1, you can go to 2, and you can go to 5. And from 3 you can go to 4 and you can go to 3. So you have visited all the nodes using only these two starting nodes, right? So this is the minimum possible because we have explored all the cases where you start from a single node, and we see that it is not possible, right? So this is how it works. So the observation is, if there is any edge from node A to node B, then node B will never be in the answer. Why? Because we have to find the smallest set, and if we know that we can reach node B from node A, then it is sufficient that node A is in the answer, because it implies that you can reach node B. So, and all the nodes you can reach from node B itself, right? So only 0 needs to be in the answer. 2 will never be in the answer because it can be reached from 0, right? So if you just build upon that observation, you can very easily come to the conclusion. So that is the observation basically, that if there is any node which can be reached from any other node, then this node will never be in the answer. Its parent is a candidate. So if you just keep building on, so for example, if you look at 5 can never be in the answer because it can be reached by 2. But now 2 cannot be in the answer because it can be reached by 0. So if you just keep following this chain, you will find out that the only nodes which will be in the answer are the ones which cannot be reached from anywhere. So basically it means that they have no incoming edge. For example, if 1 was to be in the answer, it's better that we keep 0 in the answer because 1 can be reached from the 0 node, right? So it's very simple then. We only need to find all those nodes which do not have any incoming edge, right? So hope that clears the solution. Let's look at another use case. So for example, n is 5 and edges are as shown in this figure. So let's see which all nodes don't have any incoming edge. So 0 does not have, so 0 should be in the answer. 4 has, so 4 will not be in the answer. 1 also has this edge. Then 2 does not have and 3 does not have. So answer is 0, 2, 3. So our observation seems to be right. So just let's just code it. Right, so what we will do is basically we need to find out we need to find out which all nodes don't have any incoming edge, right? So for that we need two things. We need all the nodes. We will just create a set for them, and we create nodes which have an incoming edge, right? So this will be so they have incoming edge, right? So what we do is we just iterate over the edges. So this is from, and this is to in edges. So we iterate over the edges, and what we do is we add both the edges to all, right? So this edge means from 2. For example, if there is an edge from 0 to 1, it will be given in this form 0, 1. So that's what from means. And 2 means this edges from this node and this edges to this node. And we need we need to collect all the nodes which have incoming edge, right? So have in, and we will add in to it, 2 to it. Why? Because for example, in this case 0 to 1 is an edge, so we will add 1 to have incoming node, right? Because have incoming edge, because 1 has an incoming edge, so the part which is in 2, it will be added to have in set, Alright, so now what we just need to find out is all those nodes which are in all but they don't have incoming edge. So what we do is we iterate over so basically you can node of all nodes, we iterate over all nodes, and then what we do is we just check if have-in, if it does not have it, right? So if it has incoming edge, then we know it cannot be in the answer, so it should not have. Then if it does not have, then we will just push it to answer, and we will push that node to answer, and we will just return the answer. So just let's try it once. We have to add it. Have-in is not a function. We have to add it to the set. So it is giving 03023, so which is correct. So let's submit it. If it is correct, then I'll just go through the answer once more. So this is correct. So what we have done here is, as I explained, that we have to find all the nodes which do not have any incoming edge. So for that, we go through all the edges. Edges will be in the form of from node and to node. We collected all the edges in a set, and we collected all the nodes which have incoming edge, because if it is saying that there is an edge from 0 to 1, that means that 1 has an incoming edge. So we add it to this have incoming set. Alright, and just we iterate over all the nodes, and if it does not have any incoming edge from you can verify that from this set, and we just push that node into the answer. So that's how we can solve the second question. So let's look at the third question. So this is a question where you are given a function which will, what it will do is it will modify some array. Alright, let's read the question first. So there is some function, and we are given that your task is to form an integer array nums from an initial array of zeros array that is same size as nums. So basically you will be given an array nums, so for example like this 1, 5, and but you have to form that number nums array from an initial array which only consists of 0, right? And it is given that it will have same number of zeros, so we will find out why it is required, but let's assume that array, and so basically initially we have an array which will have all zeros and the size will be equal to the nums array. For example, in this case it will be 0, 0. Then we have to find out, return the minimum number of function calls make to this function to convert that 0 array to this nums, right? And it is guaranteed that answer will fit in 32-bit integer. So let's look at an example, and let's read the modify function first, what it is doing. So it is taking three integers, three inputs. So one is array, second is op, let's call it a operation type, or then third one is some index. So if operation type is 0, then it will actually increment this index by 1, right? So if you pass this modify function some array, and then you pass operation type 0, and you pass some index, then it will just increment that element. Second is multiply all elements by 2, right? So so if operation type is 1, so in this case operation type was 0, if operation type is 1, then each and every element will be multiplied by 2. So basically what this function is doing is, in one call, right, because operation will have one value, so in one call it will either increment one of the element by 1, it can be any element, because we can pass that as index, right? And second is you multiply each and every element, so you don't have any choice in this case, you have to multiply everyone by 2, right? So this is the function which will modify our array. So basically we have to see that if we are given an array which is initially 0, how will we get to 1, 5, right? So it is showing here. So first thing to notice here is that we can the first function call will never be this multiply by 2, because if you initially have 0, then if you keep multiplying it by 2, it will always be 0. So first thing is, if there are any 0, we need to just ignore it, because 0 don't need to change, so we will never make a call to increment it, right? So this function we will never call for that index, but any index which is not 0, we will at least have to call this function once with operator type 0, because we have to start somewhere, right? So if 0 is there, we have to add 1 to make it something, because if you keep multiplying by 2, it will become nothing, right? So how to get to 1 comma 5, they are explaining it here. So first you will increase one element, you will increase second element, so it will become 0 comma 1. In next step you have to double it, so 0 comma 1, multiply each element by 2, it will become 0 comma 2, and then it will become 0 comma 4. Now you have taken two operations, you multiplied once, then you multiplied twice, so three operations in total. And then now you have so now you have 0 comma 4. Now you add 1 to this, so basically you call this function again with operator type is equal to 0, and then you increment the second thing as well. So you incremented first and you incremented second, so you made two operations call here, so total is 5, right? So let's look at another example, which is 2 comma 2. So if it is 0 comma 0, so you increment both of them by 1, so in one operation it becomes 0 comma 1, in second operation it becomes 1 comma 1, because now you incremented this, and then you can just multiply by 2. So in three operations you can convert 0 comma 0 to this array, right? Similarly you can look at maybe any other smaller example, but other examples are longer. So the idea is basically something like this. So yeah, so basically this function, what it says is that you can make two kind of, so basically you have this array zeros, you will have many zeros, and you can make two operations: increase any element by 1, double all elements, right? And you have to tell me if I can create, no, so it is given that we can always create nums array, and because it is given that answer is guaranteed to fit in 32-bit integer, will not prove that it is always possible, but we have to find minimum number of steps to reach nums array, right? So this is what we have to do. We can actually try to simulate this process, like what they are saying, that so basically what I initially thought to do was do this process in reverse, right? For example, if you had 2 comma 2, just keep dividing everything by 2. So you divide everything by 2, it becomes 1 comma 1. Now you can't divide everything by 2, so you keep subtracting ones, right? So the observation was like if there is any number which is odd, then basically you can't so basically we are reversing the process. So if any number was odd, it was impossible that the previous step was multiplying by 2, right? Because then every number will become even after this operation. So we decrement the odd by 1, right? So you can think along that lines, but actually that gave me TLE, so I got one TLE in this question, but instead of that we will make some observation. So basically then once I got TLE, then I tried to see if I can observe something in the bits, right? So always so one thing is, think of any number. So first operation, as we said, that if it is 0, then it can only be converted to 1. So if you multiply it by 2, it will again become 0, so you have to add 1. So now one interesting observation here is so if you have to form any number, right? So the fastest way to make this number, like can be like one is like you can keep adding 1, right? So suppose let's start with a small number, so 1 0. So this number is actually 2, right? So you can form this number using either plus 1, so you start with 0, then you can make it to 1, and by doing plus 1, and then you can again do plus 1, right? But other way is also this: you add 1, but then you multiply by 2, right? So one thing which we can notice is, if a number was of the form this, right, then it's so basically if there is it's a large number, like it's not large, but suppose there are many zeros, so this is binary representation. So if there is 1 and there are many zeros, so the fastest way will never be to add ones, because this number will be actually 1 2 3 4 8 16, I think 32, it will be 32. So you don't want to do 32 operations. You know that you can do this faster in this way. So 0 you will convert it to 1 using plus 1, and then you can just keep multiplying it by 2, I think 3 4 5 times, right? So you can do it this in 6 operation, I think, right? So this is one observation. So so basically, if there is if there is a number which has, let's say, 1 2 3 4 5 6 bits, then it's easy to make that number larger by multiplying it by 2. But the problem comes when we have number like this, right? So if it has many ones in between as well, what can we do about this, right? So the observation here is basically whenever there is new one, right? So whenever you multiply a number, so suppose you have a binary number like this, so suppose it has 0, suppose it has a lot of zeros, then it has a lot of ones, then it has a lot of zeros, and then it has a lot of ones and zeros maybe. If you ever multiply this number by 2, right, it will never introduce a new 1 to this number. So this is the core observation which I made. So there might be other ways to do this, but if you have any binary number and you multiply it by 2, the number of ones in the binary representation will not change, right? So this is one observation which you can make. So for this, we can directly say that because we know that by multiplying by 2 we can never introduce a new 1. So to get that 1, we had done +1 sometimes, right? So we had to do +1 3 times. So this is one observation, that when you multiply by 2, you can never increase the number of 1 bit in the binary representation. So number of 1 bits. So 1 bits are also called set bits, and 0 is called unset. So number of set bits will give me minimum number of +1 operation, right? So this is the first observation, that you know that because multiplying by 2 can never increase the number of ones, so these many operations I have to do. Now the second thing was how many 2 operations you multiplied by 2 operations you have to do. So when you multiply by 2, right, bit actually shifts by 1. So for example, if you had 1, you multiply it by 2, it becomes 1 0. If you had 1 0 1, you multiply it by 2, it becomes 1 0 1, right? Something like this. So basically every increase in bit is easily done using multiplication by 2, right, compared to adding ones. So what we can say is, like, how many bits are there, that many times you have to multiply by 2, right? Because it is easier to increment bit. For example, if you look at this example, so it is 1 0, which means 2, but you have to make 4 out of it, right? So it is easier to just multiply it by 2, because otherwise you have to add 1 twice. But if this number grows, then so basically multiplying by 2 is faster. So we will so that is second observation. So but that is not the exact number. So the exact number is, if you have this 100, right, it has three bits, but you will have to multiply it by 2 only twice, because we know that the first initial state will be 1, and then you multiply it by 2, which will make it 1 0, then you multiply it by 2 again, it will make it 100, 100, sorry. So 2 times, so the number of bits -1, right? So here are the 2 observations. One is, whenever you multiply by 2, you don't increase the number of 1 bits in the binary representation. That means the number of times you will call +1 operation, this one, increase any element by 1, has to be at least the number of set bits, right? And to increase a number to the given length of bits, you can just multiply it by 2. So if we look at a simple example, so let's look at 101. We know that somehow we have to so what we will do is, because the last digit is 1, so the last operation will be +1. Before that, so we are looking at it in the reverse, right? So let's try to look at it in the reverse order. So last operation will be +1. So before that it was 1 0 0. So the operation before that can be into 2. So before that it was 1 0, and before that it was 1, because there is 1 0. So, and then 1 can only become 1 from 0 using +1. So these are the 4 operations, right? So how did we get to it? Like, the two operations will be +1 definitely, and the number of bits is 3, and as I told that you have to multiply by 2 to increase the bit length. So 3 minus 1 will be 2 because we started with 1. So that's how we will do it. We will count how many numbers of set bit are there in the bit representation, and what is the total number of bits in the binary representation of the number of each of the number, and then we will see what we can do, right? So let's see. So first we'll have to write some functions. So function 1 will be set bit, right? So this will actually count number of 1 in binary representation. So you can look up how to do it fast, but you can basically iterate over all the bits, but there is one trick which we use to do this. So I'll just write it quickly. So you can basically search it online how to count set bits, and you can just iterate over all the 32 bits as well, because it is given that the answer will fit in 32-bit integer. That means that every element cannot be greater than 32-bit, because the maximum increment is multiplied by 2, and if your answer fits in 32, that means you're making at least at most 32 moves, and the number will not go beyond those bits. So you can use that as well, but there is this trick where we just do. So this will give me okay, yes, so this will give me number of ones in the binary representation, and we also have to count total number of total bits. So I'll do -1 as well, because we have to, as we see here, like if you want to go to 100 100, then after starting from 1 we will multiply it twice. So number of bits is 3, but we have to multiply it by 2 times. So total bits -1, so which is actually like previous implementation only. So while so you can just, if you don't know how to count total number of bits, you can just look it up online. So what you do is you just shift n by 1 towards right. So whenever it consumes all the bits, it will be the number of bits. So -1, right? Because total bits -1. So that's it. So these two are the utilities which we need based on our observation. We count how many ones are there, and we count how many total bits are there, right? So but we have to do it for all the numbers, right? So what we do is so first we do let set bits. So this will be nums.map. So this will be this count set bits. So what this will do now is it will give me an array which will be similar in length to nums, but for every integer in nums it will actually contain. So for example, we'll look at an example. -1, right? So I'll just give it this name. So this, right? So let's look at what these functions are giving. So basically it is JavaScript, but it will map each element to these functions. So we will just print them once to see. Oh man, this does not have it does not have autocomplete for me. So right, so let's just print it once and let's see what it is giving, so that we can proceed from there. So 1 5, first one is giving 1 comma 2, and second one is giving 0 comma 2. So I'll just write it down. 1 comma 2, set bits is 1 comma 2, and the number of total bits -1 is actually 0 comma 2, right? So let's just write the binary representation of 1 comma 5. So 1 comma 5's binary representation is 1 comma 5. So 1 is 1 and 5 is 101. So if we count the number of set bits in 1, it is actually only 1, which is this, and the number of set bits in 5 is 2. So this is that 2, and number of bits in this is 1, and number of bits in this is 3. If we subtract 1, it will give 0 comma 2. So we got what we wanted. How we thought about the process, right? So we need to find total number of bits -1, and we need to find number of ones. So now one interesting observation here is whenever you are adding one, you are always adding it to a single number. So these number of operations, basically total, right? It has to be done on each and every number. So for example, this operation 1 comma 2, so it has two ones and it has one, so it will actually take three operations, because you will have to increment this particular number two times and you will have to increment this number um, one time. So we need a total of totals actually. So in JavaScript you can do something like this. So basically I'm summing all the numbers in total, so it will be right. So don't worry about the syntax, but I'm just taking sum of all the number in this total array. Right now, second thing is something to observe here is that when we are looking at the set bits, right? So now actually in set bits, just give me 1 second. Bit this one. Okay, yeah, okay, so set bits we have done. So I think I did wrong, because this is the set bit. So the thing I told about adding one, that information is actually stored in set bits. I'll just repeat. So set bits contain this information, so we need total of that, because to reach to this number, which is 5, we have to increment it twice, and this information is stored in set bits. Right, so now that is done. Now there is interesting observation in this total array. So what is total array? This is the number of bits minus 1, right? So as we talked about, like if we want to reach to this one, we have to multiply it twice by 2, right? So the interesting thing to note here is that whenever we are doing this multiply by 2 operation, we are actually multiplying all the elements. So because we know that whenever we are doing any such operation, we will always be doing this operation to all the elements. That means if this operations look something like this, right? So the first number needs 2 operations, the second number needs 3 operations, the last number needs 1 operation. That means whenever I carried out this operation, it was also carried out for these 2 elements, right? Because we are multiplying all the elements. That means that the maximum number of operations I'll have to do is actually the max of this array, right? So I'll just try to take an example. So for example this, so as I know that to reach to this number I have to multiply one time, and to reach this also I have to multiply it 1 time. That does not mean that I have to take 2 operations separately. I can do it in 1 operation. That means that only the maximum of these will contribute to my answer. To take an example, if we, in this case it is not very evident. So if we look at this example, right, how many times are we multiplying by 2? So if we just look at 4, right, if we just look individually at 4, we are incrementing it by 1 and then we are doing nothing. Then we are multiplying it by 2 and then we are again multiplying it by 2. So for 4 we are doing this operation 2 times. For 2 we are doing this operation 1 time here, and for 5 we are again doing this for 2 times. So because I know that whenever I did the operation for 2, it affected others as well, that means that it does not count. The maximum number of operations only count. So I just need to add that to the answer. Max of total. Right, that's it. So I'll try on all the cases. 5, 3, 6, 7, 8. So 8, 7, 6, 3, 5. That is correct. Let's try to submit it. So this is correct. So I'll just repeat the observations very quickly. The observations were, whenever we multiply by 2, the number of ones does not increase. That means the numbers of 1 will give me the number of plus 1 operation. And whenever we multiply by 2, we increase the bit length by 1. So the number of the bit length will give me the number of multiplication by 2 operation, and minus 1 because the first bit will always come from plus 1 operation. And after that we observed that all the set bit operation has to be accumulated because it works on every individual element, but out of the operations which are multiplied by 2, only the max will matter, because whenever you did operation on that element, any element, it affected all others. So basically, if there was some element which had 3 operations and there was some other element which had 2 operations, so whenever you did those 2 operations, the other element which had 3 operations already got 2 operations, so you did 1 extra operation on that one. So that means the total operations again remain 3. So that's why we only take the max of that, right? And we just counted total bits and then -1, and then we just counted set bits. Alright, so that is the solution for this question. Coming to the last question. So we are given a 2D array of characters, so it will only contains lowercase English characters, and the size is like 500. So you need to find if there exists any cycle, right? So what is a cycle? So cycle should has a length of 4 or more. Okay. Okay. Okay, also you cannot move to the cell that you visited to the last move, in your last move. Okay. 2, 3. Right. Yeah. So basically, it is saying that if you are given a grid of characters, can you form a cycle? And you can only move like in the 4 directions. Like you can't go diagonally. And the thing is, you can't go to the cell you just came from. For example, if you had something like this, right? So this is not a cycle. B, B, and then B, B. You keep going between B, B. This is not a cycle. It has to has first it has to has length more than 4. Right, and you cannot move to the cell you visited in your last move, right? So you can only go up and down, and you can't go to the cell you visited in your last move. So basically, this is just asking that if we can form a cycle with same character, right? So something like this. So it can form cycle with A, and it can also form cycle with B. So that is correct. In this case, you can also see that cycle does not have to be a perfect square or perfect rectangle. It can be something like zigzag also. Right, so basically you start with C and you just take valid steps, which is in 4 directions, so right, left, down, up, and left, right? So so if you are able to reach the same character again, then it's a cycle. But in this case you can't do anything. You go from B to B to B, but you can't go to this diagonally, and you can't go to the parent where you came from. Similarly for these B's, so the answer for this is false, but for this is true, right? So this looks a little bit tricky, but it is simple DFS. So you need to remember 2 things. Is first is like, if you start from any character and you start DFS from there, you will actually visit all the characters which are yeah. So the concern here is, if you're able to do DFS in linear time, right? So it is 500 times 500 is the size of grid. So if you're able to do some DFS or BFS, whatever you want to do in linear time, then it will pass. And how will we ensure that it is linear in time? Is that if you start with A, right, and you try to traverse everything, so you go from A to A, wherever you go, so you just mark everything else which you have visited as visited, because suppose you have started from this A and you have reached this A somehow, right? Okay, let me take another example. For example, if you started from this B and you reached this B in the BFS which started from this B, now later when you want to start DFS from this B, you should not do it, because you have already visited this B starting from this B. And if it was a part of cycle, right, cycle does not have any start or beginning. So if it was a part of a cycle, then you would have found that cycle at B itself. For example, in this case, you started with this C, right, and you found a cycle. Suppose I do another BFS with this C, this will already be visited from this C. And because this C already has this cycle, that means this C will also have that cycle. And if you start from this B and you reach this B and you did not find any cycle at this B, that means you will not find any cycle at this B, because you will start from this B, you will go to this B, but you know that this B is not a part of a cycle, right? Because we have already done BFS at this earlier B. So that is the only thing you need to take care of, is that you don't repeat DFS from this B, otherwise the complexity will grow. So if you forget that, you will get a TLE. So if you just start from this B, then it is very trivial, because then it is actually linear. How? because if you start with A, you will visit some nodes, and you will never start DFS from those nodes again. So you will visit every node at max twice, once while doing DFS, second while verifying that if it was visited. So let's just implement it as standard DFS, and so basically we need to just find out that if I start DFS from a node, am I able to reach that node again? Alright, so that is what we want. One more interesting thing here is something like this. You can have case something like this. So look at this case: A, then B, A, B, A, and then B, A, A. Right? So think about this case a little bit. So I'll just zoom a little bit. So think about this case. You will actually start from this A, but you will go from this A to this A, then this A, then this A, then this A, and then this A, and then this A, and this A, and then this A, and you will come at this A, right? So basically you will find a cycle here, right? So you have to take care of this also, that the cycle might not end at the initial point where you started from. So but now what if you start doing again going from A to again A, right? You might get stuck in infinite loop, and you have to handle that case as well. But that is a basic standard problem in DFS. We use a visited array for this. You can just look up the implementation how to do it. I'll just tell you how I did it. Right, so we just have to start DFS, and we just have to check if after doing DFS we are able to visit the character which we have already visited in the same DFS. So this is standard cycle finding in a graph using DFS in an undirected graph. I think it might work in directed as well. Okay, cool. So let's do it. So let's row is equal to, and let me zoom out. Then the number of columns is equal to this one, right? So now what we have to do is I use a trick. So this is one implementation trick or technique, is like, how do you decide that you have visited something earlier, right? So for example, it might not happen. Okay, it can happen in this case as well. It will not happen, I think, in this case. Let me think about it. So you start from C. So I'm just thinking if I'm maintaining a visited array. Visited is true. Okay, let's just try to do it and select visited is an array. So that array will actually be the size of this grid. And true. Cool. Let's just implement it. Then I'll improve. I got another idea, and I'll just implement it. If it is wrong, then we will see. So first, this visited array has to be of same shape as that of grid, because we need to mark every node as visited. So let's just see. So for every row, we need visited. We need an array of length columns. Then we will fill it with false. So that means that initially nothing has been visited. So this is the initial thing, and we will just make a variable done to exit from the DFS earlier. For example, as soon as I find a cycle, right, I don't want to continue my DFS, so that I don't get stuck first in infinite loop. Second is, if I have already found a cycle at C, I don't want to continue to A. Right, so this done variable will tell me that I have already found a cycle, right? So that is one thing. So now I have to start DFS from every node. Now I will start DFS, but only if it is not visited. If it is visited, then I'll just continue, right? Otherwise I'll just start a DFS from I comma j, right? That's it. Now just I need to check if done, then I return true here only, or exit early. Otherwise I'll just continue, and I'll just return false otherwise, right? So this is the only thing I need to do. But there is one more implementation detail. Let me talk about it when I implement DFS. So DFS, no, so suppose I'm doing DFS from every node, right? So one interesting thing which happens, so basically how DFS works is we go to a node and then we go to every node, we can go from there, right? So we'll have to handle that case as well. If I go from this B to this B, then I have to handle that I can't go from this B back to this B, right? Because yeah, so that case I have to handle somehow. So to handle that case, I will also pass the node I am running my DFS on, and second is the parent from which this node came from. So right now we are starting from nothing, so I'll pass it as null. But for children of I comma j, or the nodes which I can reach from I comma j, I will remember from where I came so that I don't go there again. So we will see how we can check this. So we will. So I'm writing this function inline only, inside this function only, because then it can access other variables here. Otherwise, you will have to pass those variables by reference. So this will be. So this will be e, let's say e comma b, and then parent of x and parent of y. So these are the parents from which I came, right? So we will just do a simple DFS. So to exit early, right? So if I have already found the cycle, then return, do nothing, right? Then if I am coming to this node, this is all standard, so I'm not explaining much. So I'll do this, and now, so I have visited this this character, right? This point. Now I need to explore other neighbors, I need to find out what character is this point. Done. Right, now I need to go to 4 directions. You can use loop as well, but I'll just write those 4 direction here right now. So those 4 directions will be up, down, left, and then right. So I'll do this for all the directions, and we will do DFS in all those directions. So what will happen for us? So these are the coordinates for the point to which I'll go from a comma b, right? So for up, x will be same, but y will be b minus 1, right? Similarly for down, x will be for down, x will be same as a, but y will become b plus 1. For left, x will become a minus 1, but y will stay b. Then right, for right, x will become a plus 1 and y will become b. Now I just need to do this dfx x comma y, and then you have to remember that parents were now a comma b, right? Because now we are coming from a comma b. So this is what we need to do from all these directions, right? But there is something which we need to take care of. One thing is that we don't want to go into the direction, right? So we don't do DFS in every case. We have to check for this case. First, that if x is equal to parent and y is also equal to parent, then we don't want to do, right? So if it is not, then only we will do DFS, right? So this is one thing. Then second thing we need to check is that we are going to the same character. So okay, before that, okay, let's see. So grid x comma y should be equal to char, right? Because the valid path goes through the same character. But now we also have to check that this xy has not gone out of the grid, right? For example, if b was 0, then y will be minus 1, and minus 1 will not be the part of grid, and it can give exceptions. So we will just write a function which will say is valid x comma y, and then we will check if we are moving to the same character, only then we will start DFS. Right, so we will put it inside if case. So this is the least we will do, and then we will do this for other directions as well. So let's write the isValid function first. I'm writing it inline because I'll be using some other things as well. So this is easy. X should be greater than equal to 0 and X should be less than, yes, R, because X is the first subscript, so it should be less than number of rows, and similarly for Y. So that means it is inside grid. So that's what is valid means. Done. So this is what I have to do for all others as well. There is one more thing which we want to do, which is this. Now if this is visited, that means that I have come to the same character again. That means I have found a cycle, right? So that means done is equal to true and then return, right? I can just return because I know I have found a cycle, and I don't need to write else. So DFS. So what we are doing here is we are checking that we are not going back to the parent. We are checking that X and Y is inside the grid, and we are checking that we are moving to the same character. But if we are moving to the same character and we have already visited that character, that means I have found a cycle. Otherwise, do the DFS in the neighbor itself, and we are passing the node and the parent. We just need to copy this for every direction. So now here is the beauty of this done is equal to true. So if you think that if you are setting one done is equal to true and you are going to another child, it might take a lot of time. It will not, because in the first line itself it will return, because done is here. That's why we are writing it inside this function, because it can directly see done. Otherwise I'll have to pass it as a reference in other language. So let me run it. There might be some bugs because it's a little bit longer code. So let me run it for some test case. So runtime error because we forgot. So that's why you want to do it in a loop. Otherwise you'll have to change. So these are only 4. That's why it's manageable. So this is true. Let's see that third case is giving false. So the third case is giving true. So we need to handle that somehow. Cool. Let me think about it. So if it is visited, then I don't do anything if it is done. So we will just debug the last case, which is giving true, but it should give false. Okay, so where we are returning true, we will see. We will see this. Oh, okay. I go to this P. Let's see. We will also print one more thing, which is visited array. So it is giving 0, 1. We have true, true. I tried to go to B. Okay. It is giving true. So we'll have to write console.log at one more place, which is here at everyone. So that's why we should do it in a loop. And I'll also print a comma b. Let's see. So it is 0, 1, then 1, 2. So a comma b is 1, 2. Okay. Cool. So 0, 1, we are starting from 0, 1, and we are at 1, 2. Oh. Started from this one and we reached till 1, 2, and this is giving true. Okay, so we will see in which direction it is failing, in which direction it is giving true, right? so now I'll have to later delete them again. So let's see, it is giving in the up direction, so it should not even go inside that because that should be the parent. That is actually the, oh wait, so I'm printing x comma y and then I'm printing a comma b. That is stupid because I have written x is equal to 0 here, so it should be x is equal to a. Let's run it once more. So now it is giving false. Now comes the tiring part where I have to remove all these console logs. sorry. Right, so done. Okay, so this is done. Let me use all the test cases. So this is giving right for these cases. Let's submit it once. So this is correct. So this is a standard DFS only. The things we need to take care of, we don't start the DFS again with the visited node because it gave me one TLE because I did not put this line only. Then second case is that we don't visit the parent again. Otherwise you will very easily find a loop, right? In this case like B, 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 B. So that should not happen. So this should not happen, that you don't go to parent. So otherwise it is just standard DFS. So that's it for this bi-weekly challenge.